Hi there, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Sinister Ideas podcast. I am Danny Thompson, your host, the left-handed writer, and let's call today's episode Sinister Ideas on what the heck is happening. Seriously, we'll call this one Sinister Ideas on AI art, right? And I know I've talked about AI and the various technological advancements that are poised to radically alter the way we do business and just about everything else in our lives today. And I was going to let that topic go for a little bit and get into some other things, but as people who listen to the podcast know, I've been for a little over a year now a user of Jasper.ai, which is an AI copywriting platform. And I've talked at length about that and how, this is coming, there's no way to avoid it, and I don't want to be John Henry'd out of a job, right? I want to be Mozart or Eddie Van Halen on this thing by the time it gets in the hands of the average user. Well, the Jasper team just created integration with the new DALL-E 2 AI art generation algorithm. And I'm not exaggerating when I say, holy crap. Now, I've played with several other platforms, the Dream app by Wombo and Midjourney are the two I've got the most experience with. And don't get me wrong, those are awesome, right? If you sort of learn the art and science of developing your inputs, these are both text-to-image AI platforms where you describe a picture you would like to see and the AI spits it out for you. Those are both, they're incredible. It impressed me the level of the technology that we had at our fingertips when I first started playing with these things, that I could say, I want to see a picture that is this, and it would spit something out. Now, often it's very impressionistic, right? Especially with Midjourney. If you go in with a specific image in your mind that you wanted to create, you're not going to get that image. But if you have an idea for something you would like to see, you can describe it, and then it gives you the ability to shape that image over successive iterations. With Wombo Dream, you put in your input and it spits out an image. And if it's not quite there, then you put in another input, right? And you tweak it a little bit and it'll change the image that comes out. You'll very rarely get two similar outputs through there. It's amazing. It's amazing what the technology can do. I can't say that enough. I don't have any problems with either Midjourney or Dream. They're both amazing products. But the DALL-E 2 algorithm is on a whole nother level. Now, this is an audio podcast, so I won't take the time to try to describe the difference between the images. Just let me say, I put in, here's an example that I can give over through the sound of my voice. I put in a prompt into Dream for a wolf in a smoking jacket drinking scotch. And it spit out a pretty cool image of a dog/wolf head on a human body wearing a jacket, clearly, and holding something in his hand that could be a glass of scotch. And it was awesome. It's very stylish. The composition is awesome. It looks like something that you would see that Banksy had done on a wall in London somewhere, right? It's pretty cool. I put that same prompt. A wolf in a smoking jacket drinking a glass of scotch. And the DALL-E 2 integration into Jasper gave me a humanoid body sitting in a chair wearing a smoking jacket, holding a glass of scotch. And where this person's head should be was a wolf's head. And it wasn't just like a tacky cut and paste. I mean, that wolf's head looks like it belongs on that body coming up out of the neck of the smoking jacket. It is unreal. So I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I am going to create a post on my website. Go to lefthandedwriter.com/blog, and depending on when you're listening to this, just look for the blog post. Weird. All right. So look for the blog post that has Dolly 2 in the title. And you'll be able to find it. I imagine I will title it something like My Dolly 2 Experience. How about that? So go to my blog, look for My Dolly 2 Experience, and I'll create a post, and I'll give some examples of some stuff that I had created through Dream and then created through the Dolly 2 integration in Jasper with using the exact same inputs, and you can see the difference. So the reason I am jumping back on this horse in the podcast is because I made predictions a while back of some serious changes that were going to happen. I started talking about this about a year and a half ago, and I said it was probably going to be in the next 5 to 7 years. So we pull back a year and a half from that, and so now we're looking at 3.5 to 5.5 years, right? If this is where we're at today, then those sweeping changes are now looking more like they're in the 2 to 3 year time frame. If you hear noises in the background, yes, I am stuck in traffic on my way to work, so I figured I'd pull my phone out and go ahead and record this. Excuse me. So, yes, so the changes that I had anticipated that were going to be 5 to 7 years are probably going to be happening in the next 2 to 3 years. And I say this as someone who is in a leadership position in a marketing team in a company that's closing in on $1 billion in revenue every year. This is literally a game changer. Now, there are discussions in some of these groups I'm on online that are wondering if this is going to be the end for artists and graphic designers. And my personal take is, if they're any good, no. What this is going to do is change what they're able to output and how quickly they're able to produce it. Right now, most designers, their work is based on either stuff they create freehand in apps like Photoshop or Illustrator, right? Or it's something they build off of using stock photos. So you use a stock photo library like Adobe Stock, and you find a picture that you can use as the base for whatever the idea is you want to convey. And so there's a lot of searching through databases, trying to find the best image that most closely resembles what you're trying to convey, or that at least has elements that you can pull together with others to create the idea that you're trying to put out into the world. So let's say you have an amazing look. You spend 5 minutes and you pull together all the assets you need and you begin putting your idea together. All right, so then you're shaping it, and then you're finishing it, and there's an approval process if you're in a department like ours. And so it goes back and forth, and you make different iterations, right? With Dolly 2, you don't have to find an image that will allow you to sort of create the idea you want to create. You can put the idea you want to create into Dolly 2, and it will spit out an image in the style that you're looking for. So if you want to do a pastel rendering of an image in the style of some particular artist, it can spit that out for you. If you want a photorealistic image, it'll spit that out for you. If you want something in claymation style, or some sort of specific pen and ink illustration, right? I was posting stuff in the Facebook user group for Jasper, and somebody asked, because I had gotten into the beta test, and somebody asked if it could produce images in the style of the old Tales from the Crypt comics. And so just trying to do something random, because I'm still trying to push the algorithm to see what it is and isn't capable of, right? And so I just took a random topic that could maybe be a little bit scary and asked the AI to put out that image of, so the prompt I used was a late rent notice, right? Which can be scary, right? If you're in that situation. And it spit out an image that looked like it could have been drawn in the old, it's black and white in the old Tales from the Crypt comic strip or comic books. Heavy lines, deep shading, sort of, the composition is nice, but there's probably not anything that you would say was beautiful in it, if that makes sense. But it captured the tone and mood of those comics perfectly. And then the scene was literally looked like a dad at a table and some kids in the background, and the dad's not looking happy, and he's staring at a piece of paper on the table or something like that. It was insane. And it can spit these images out. The average return that I've had was between 12 and 18 seconds. And it spits out 4 iterations of whatever image you're looking for. So even if you don't get, there are limitations insofar as you can't say can't, because people have, but it's hard to give it a complex scene that has a lot of elements in it and get what you're actually looking for, if that makes sense. But you can ask it for an image that sets the stage, that has the background for that image you're wanting to create. And then you can ask it for images of the specific elements that you're looking for, that you want in that image. And then you can go into something simple like Adobe Express or Canva, and you can take that base image and make that the background of whatever the format is you're trying to create. And then you can pull each of the elements in and remove the background, right? And clean it up. And then paste that into the image, place it where you want it. And so instead of going to Adobe Stock or some other database and pulling out images that get as close as they can to what it is you're looking for, you can go to DALL-E 2 and you can ask specifically for what you want, and it'll give it to you, which makes the time that is required to take those elements and put them into the image you're trying to create much more efficient. So do I think this is the death of graphic designers? No. In the same way I don't think that Jasper is the death of professional copywriters. Knock on wood. But I think it could very well be the death of stock image libraries. Now, one thing there, if you go to the Dream app, now Jasper's integration of DALL-E 2 doesn't have this, but it is a feature that has been requested, and they're looking at adding it. But in the Dream app, again, it's Dream app by Wombo. You can find it in your whatever app store you use. You can actually upload a photo to use as the base for the input that you're asking for. And I've done this, and I know I've shared this on both my LinkedIn and my Instagram. I'm at Left-Handed Writer on both. But I uploaded a picture of my son from a canoe trip we had taken a couple of years ago. And then I asked it first for just an image of a whitewater canoe trip, and it spit out this picture. Right, we live in Alabama, right? So it's we're on the river, and there are lots of like deciduous trees, lots of oaks and elms, maples. They're sweet gum. Every now and then a couple of pine trees, but they're like southern pines, right? Kind of big bushy pine trees. It using the same layout of that picture, where you're viewing it from the back of the canoe, My son is up in the front of the canoe with his paddle, and then in the distance you can see the tree line as we're looking at a bend in the river as it curves to the right. And the tree line where it meets the sky sort of goes in a gentle slope from the upper left corner down towards the right, where it hits about the middle of the screen. Well, the new image it spits out, that tree line is the same, but instead of my son in the front of the canoe, and it's not quite photorealistic, but it's really close. It's like a really good Unreal Engine rendering, right? Where if you're looking at it quickly in passing, you could almost think it was realistic, unless you really start examining the details. So instead of my son in the front of this canoe, it's a guy in sort of a heavy green outdoors coat, almost like an anorak or something like that. But instead of being on the river, it looks like we're on a lake. And this lake, the shoreline of the lake, is covered with these tall, thin, like Canadian-style evergreens, like blue spruce or something like that are tall and thin. Now, if you put the two pictures side by side, you will notice that they have almost identical composition. But they're clearly not the same picture. So then I put in another iteration, or another input, asking for a canoe trip through the desert at sunset. The original picture, it was blue sky with some clouds. And that first picture that it produced, it looked like more of a gray overcast day. And this next picture, the shape of the setting was the same, right? You're looking at a canoe from the back of it. There's a person in the front. The person has a paddle. The horizon starts in the upper left corner, has a gentle slope down towards the middle as it approaches the right edge. And then there's a curve in the river, and then the horizon starts to go back up a little bit just before you get to the edge of the frame. But the trees are gone. And what's in its place are sand dunes. And the sky is filled with these thin, wispy clouds, and there are pink and purple hues in the sky. And the boat and the person are slightly less than photorealistic, but the landscape, the sand dunes, the river, the sky, the sunset, those are photorealistic. So I don't want to sell Dream or Midjourney short. They are still incredible at what they do. And Dream is free. They do have a premium version. That, one thing it does is it gives you sort of style templates you can use, where you put in your input and then you hit the style and it'll spit out an image that's pretty much in the style of whatever that was you selected. So, it has one that is Dali, like Salvador Dali. They have one that's fantasy. They have one that's steampunk. They have one that's realistic. They have one that's called throwback, but it's like old, heavily graphic arts styling, like old posters that you would see. So they're remarkably capable, but when you match the inputs word for word, the output of Dali 2 is just far and above anything that I've ever produced with Dream, and almost anything I've seen produced with Midjourney. So yeah, that's really the point I wanted to make. I think these are exciting times, because as a copywriter, used to be I would come up with an idea, right? And I'll come up with the words for the ads, and then before we pass it off to the graphic designers, I would describe, all right, here's kind of what I see in my head, you take that and run with it, right? Or sometimes I would do just a quick thumbnail sketch. And admittedly, I'm not a graphic designer, so, but it was really just to get the idea across of, all right, here's where my head is at when I'm writing these words. So you take that and make it look pretty. But now, I can put those words as an input into Dali, do 1 or 2 or 10 iterations until I get something that's really close to what I'm thinking of, and then I can give that to the designer and say, here's what I'm thinking. You can run with that. And it just makes it quicker and easier and much more effective at communicating my expectations to the people who are going to be executing on those ideas. So I think it's going to do a lot to dramatically improve the design and production process in our department. So that's the main point I wanted to make in this episode. I hope I got my point across. As soon as I'm done here, while this is processing, after I'm done recording, I'm going to go ahead and create that post I mentioned on lefthandedwriter.com. Again, go to lefthandedwriter.com/blog, and I will have that post up before this gets posted. And I will show you some examples of what DALL-E 2 can do, and then I'll show some examples of what those same inputs look like side by side with outputs from Dream. So, thanks for listening. I hope I didn't bore you and ramble on incessantly, and yeah, I will see you guys on the next one. All right, thanks a lot.